Hi again, welcome to another edition of 2 and Cancer. I am Adam Benigni, flanked by a couple of very special guests. Terry Bourgeois, who is the founder of the Empire State Ride, and Dr. Joyce Ohm, who is chair of the Department of Cancer Genetics and Genomics here at Roswell, and a 6-time Empire State rider. Thanks for being here, both of you good friends. Obviously, I'm an ESR alum myself.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be here.
So we want to talk about the Empire State Ride, which is now, 11 years old, going on 12?
That's correct, yes.
So we got to understand the history first. And take us all the way back. Terry, what was the year, and you were solo?
Yes,
right?
2014. 2014 was the proof of concept. And I had my 80-year-old mother and my sister flew out to New York and drove my camper and met me every night. So I would get on the bike and meet them every night. It was kind of a crazy start to the Empire State Ride. Before, I'd planned on doing this for a couple of months, and my mom and a friend of hers were supposed to come out and be my support crew. Well, the day before I was supposed to leave, my mother's friend called me, and she was in tears, and she said, Terry, I don't know what to do. My father, they just found a tumor in his back, and he needs emergency surgery in Omaha. And she said, your mom is my best friend. I know we were counting on doing this, but I don't know what to do. And I said, well, Mona, you go take care of your dad. I'll figure this out. Now, I had no clue as to what I was going to do, but I thought, I'll figure it out. So I called Mom, like most people do when they're in trouble. If their mom's still around, they're blessed to have that. I called Mom and said, Mom, what should I do? And she said, well, why don't you try your sister? So I called my little sister, Desiree, and said, hey, Desi, would you like to go on a trip across New York State with Mom and I? I'm going to ride a bike, and you and Mom can drive my support vehicle. And she said, well, when? And I said, tomorrow. And I could hear the wind come out of her lungs. And she said, Terry, that's a really big ask. And I said, I know. And she said, let me talk to Bill, her husband. So the next day, I put my truck in drive as I was leaving the driveway, and I thought, there's people that are looking for a job somewhere between here and New York City. I'll find someone. And I just was parallel to my mailbox, and the phone rang, and it was Desi. And she said, Terry, I can come. And I was so relieved. And she said, I need a ticket. And I said, I sent it yesterday. So that was a great trip. Great part of the trip with Mom and Desi. Spending that week together was priceless.
So the inspiration for it, was this something that you had envisioned? Again, for those of you who don't know or are getting familiar with this and watching this, the Empire State Ride is a 7-day cycling event from Staten Island, New York City, up to the Albany area and across all the way to Niagara Falls, raising money for Roswell Park Cancer Institute. So again, what was your mindset? What did you envision at that time, I guess, when you set out on your own to see if it were possible?
Yeah, so, the backstory of why I even wanted to do this was at the time there was a big gap in funding for research of what we could do at Roswell and what we could do, and what we were limited by was money, really. And every year we were reliant on a state budget. They funded some of our research, and during those times it wasn't guaranteed. Like every year you were wondering if you're going to be included in the budget or not, and it was crazy. And I thought we've got to do something to create more revenue to help with this gap. Same thing we have today, actually. And so that was the catalyst and the driver. So I have big dreams, and I thought, first, I'm going to prove it to make sure it's viable, because I had no idea. I had no clue what I was doing. But I thought, let me do this and see if I would be willing to invite people along. And so that was kind of my mindset at the time, was let's just prove this out. I actually did close to the very same route that we do today with a few hundred people. Of course, when I was doing it, I was looking for sites that would hold thousands of people. I'm a big dreamer. But so that was kind of my mindset at the time, was we have to do this. And my first few days of the event, of the ride, were quite miserable, especially the first one. I broke my toe. I found out a couple of years that my toe was actually in two pieces, which is why it was so painful on day one. And I got lost. My GPS wasn't working, and day one was horrible. And when I pulled into camp very late, and I was having a real pity party. And I thought, this is stupid, Terry. No one is ever going to want to do this. What are you thinking? And we got into camp, and this lady that was camping next to us, she saw some jerseys I had, cancer-related jerseys, and she said, Terry, no, she didn't know my name. She said, can I ask you what you're doing? And I told her that I had this dream of creating this event from New York City to Niagara Falls, and told her about Roswell. And she said, could you come over to our camp? I would like you to meet my sisters. So there were three sisters there. Susan was one of them that was getting treated at Sloan Kettering at the time. She had throat cancer. 4 months prior to her diagnosis of throat cancer, her husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so it was a very emotional story. We sat around the campground, talked about cancer, talked about why I believed in Roswell, talked about this vision. I got 3 checks from all of them before we closed for the night. And then the next morning, I grabbed one of my jerseys and I signed it, and I said, Susan, best of luck in your recovery. And then a voice kind of, reflecting on my pity party the day before, a voice came into my head and said, Terry, suck it up. This has nothing to do with you. This has everything to do with people like her. And get on your bike and ride. So anyhow, that was kind of my mindset for kicking off the inaugural beta ride.
And look what it's turned into, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But Joyce, you just heard Terry say during the pity party, who's ever going to want to do this? No one's ever going to want to do this. You've done it 6 times.
It's a little crazy, right?
And you're here at Roswell. Tell us about how you heard about it and when you decided to get involved and what your experience was.
Sure. So I'd been here a couple years. I got to Roswell about 9 years ago and did a ride for Roswell for the first time, and then saw an ad in the cafeteria for the Empire State Ride and thought, 560 miles, that might be interesting. My first year was kind of a physical challenge. It was something I wanted to see if I could push myself to do. Signed up, trained, got in there, and then kept coming back. And I think that's what you find on Empire State Ride. There's some one and done, people who come and do it once, but there's a whole lot of people who come back year after year after year. And they come back for the ride, but they come back because it becomes a family. Mm-hmm. And everybody becomes part of this really big mission, bigger than themselves.
Yeah, you go through something like that, Pete, you make friends for life. Yeah. Kind of common bonds and facing that challenge, obviously. So you get through yours, your inaugural, mm-hmm. and then, this past year you raised $1.9 million. Yeah. And I know for the 10th anniversary you exceeded $2 million. Yeah. So it's grown. How many riders this year?
7-day riders. We had, it was around 230-ish, 230 riders.
Okay, so take me back to the very beginning when you involved others. How did that happen? How many did you have, and how has this thing sort of taken off?
Yeah, so the official first year was 2015, and we had 10. And then we went to 60, and then we were north of 100, and it kind of grew up. Our peak was the 10th anniversary when we were at 280. So it's grown very nicely. We're kind of flattening out a little bit right now, which is probably appropriate. Gives us time to think.
But you've had significant growth, and I know you're doing so much to involve downstate, the New York City area and that crowd and everything. It's a challenge, but there's tremendous resource down there and a market of riders to tap into, right?
Well, the original objective and the justification actually for going down this road, no pun intended, was to get out of market, right? This was about raising more money, raising more revenue for research. But at the time, when we start prior to starting, we felt philanthropic depth in Buffalo was kind of limited at the time, and we were permeating the market here with fundraising for Roswell. So if we were going to do this initiative, it needed to be out of market, and it's been very successful in that regard. We have right now more than half of our riders are outside of New York State, and so the Northeast, if you look at the map of where our riders are from, there's a big cluster in the Northeast. But then we have a smattering out in California, Midwest. It really kind of lights up the U.S. of where our riders are from. And interestingly, Puerto Rico is coming on strong because of one of our riders that has her roots in Puerto Rico, and she's doing a great job. So the footprint is really, really impressive.
So for someone who's watching this who might be thinking about, giving this a shot, I would ask you as the founder of it, and Joyce, certainly I'll begin with you as a rider. It's $3,500 minimum, right? You have tent, camping, or hotel options. It's an incredible experience, but sort of take us through, for someone who's watching this, what is it like? What can they expect? Joyce, let's start with you.
Well, so ironically, I tent camp and my husband hotels when he rides. So you get a little bit of everything on that. Terry sometimes says anybody can do this ride. I say anybody who trains can do this ride. It's a physical challenge. It's something that you have to work for. But the people who do this ride do it because they're passionate about something, and they're almost all doing it for someone they love, and they have something driving them behind it. So you get up in the morning, and all you got to do is ride your bike. It's kind of an amazing break from real life, and people pour their heart and soul into it, and you get on your bike surrounded by people who are working towards a common mission, and you ride all day. It's amazingly well supported. There's a phenomenal team of volunteers and crew that help get you from point A to point B. It's amazing to see them move camp. It's kind of this shocking mission to move this massive camp of food and people in tents from site to site every day. They take great care of us. All you got to do is get on your bike and ride. And it's pretty amazing to see and be part of.
Yeah, I would, for 2019, my wife Lori and I did the full, or we did parts of others and did do the camping thing. For the record, I'll go on the record and say in 2019 we did the hotel thing, but and that does have its advantages. I admire the fact that you stick with the tent. As we describe and talk about the Empire State Ride, 7 days, 560 miles. Look, that's a lot, but you've given people some options as well, right? One of which is a 2-day ride.
That's
Describe
right.
that.
That's right. Yes. So our 2-day ride starts in Weedsport, New York. And you ride in with everyone else. So join us in Weedsport. It's a 2-day ride. Weedsport is a great venue. You show up in Weedsport to check in if you're doing that 2-day experience, or if you're an alumni and you can't come back for the 7-day, join us at Weedsport. It's a great party. It's a Weedsport Speedway. We have a really good time that night. And get on your bike and ride for 2 days with us into Niagara Falls. And it's a way to get your toe in the water, or to keep your toe in the water. And once you do it, if you haven't done the 7-day, you'll be hooked.
That's exactly what happened for Lori and me. We did the 2-day, and I think we did 3, the opener, and then finished with you as well for a couple of years. And then 2019 came, and we had to do the whole thing. We had talked about the importance of riders. They come from all over the country, but downstate, New York City, that's a resource, right? And to that end, you also have something called the Empire State Ride on Long Island. What's that event?
Yes, so part of the original vision of the Empire State Ride brand and leveraging the brand was to have regional events. And Empire State Ride Long Island is our first regional event, and this year it'll be in its 6th year. It's at Oyster Bay, beautiful little town. Oyster Bay is amazing, and it's a 1-day event with 3 different routes. Right now, I think we're at 3 different routes. We close Main Street, and there's a street fair. It's a great celebration. So if you're in the tri-state area, come and join us at Empire State Ride Long Island. same cause, and another great experience.
Terry, what would you say to a potential rider who would be watching this?
You know, many people say that this is far more than a bike ride.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, you know, especially in today's age where I think human to human contact is just, it's really unique to be able to get some quality time with other humans that face to face and have an experience that that you're unplugged and you're away from it all and you're working together on one mission, and that's to get down the road, right? So you're helping each other with flats, and it's kind of like there's no rank. I'm ex-military, right? So there's no rank in the room, right? Everybody's equal, right? You're wearing the same stuff, and it's a extremely incredible humanity type experience, and it's life-changing. You know, the first time I did this by myself, actually the one thing that in my head said, okay, we have to do this, because I was fighting, you know, the demons a lot. You know, no one's going to want to do this. But the one thing that happened to me was between days 3 and 4, that's when, if you don't train a lot, I agree with Joyce, you should train. I should have trained more. But day 3, my body was hurting, right? And my mind had to overcome it. And something happened in my mind that I started appreciating life a lot more. I started noticing things, birds, the flowers, you know, the trees, and something changed in me. And I thought, this is going to happen to other people when they do this as well. And that's, for me, why it was important, because the outcome of changing people's perspective on life is infinite. You know, you can't measure what that's going to do, but it's going to be good. Mm-hmm. And that was why I really committed to making this real. And I see that change happen in people every year. And I think that change that happens in people, and around that time frame, the bond that you do form with the others. Right. Many people come and say it's one and done, but more than the majority, that's not true. They come back year over year. Our retention rate is approximately around 60%. So I would just say to riders, it's a great bike ride, but it's a better experience of just being with fellow humans in a safe environment.
I can remember in 2019, now that you bring that up, between days 3 and 4, what used to be Frosty Acres, mm-hmm. in what the sort of the Schenectady
yes.
area, a lot of hills, and the climb into that particular camp mm-hmm. is an incredible challenge, mm-hmm. right? And when the riders come in, again, you don't incorporate that as part of your route presently, but it was then. Right. And the riders would rally, they'd wait, and there'd be this cheering that last stretch into camp, where that, to me, at that time, I remember sort of the bond strengthening. That had begun to form, but it sort of strengthened then. And then the next day you're off to Utica, and you're kind of in a different place mentally, and I think physically too, because while you're exhausted, you've also kind of built up some stamina during those first 3 days. And so it's an interesting experience. I mean, what they're describing is very real. Mm-hmm. What's also painfully real is the fight against cancer. Mm-hmm. And Joyce, this is where I want to turn to you. The money that's raised. You're on the front lines. Describe the difference these dollars make?
They make all the difference. We can't do anything that we do in the research world without these dollars. This isn't what funds most of research, but it funds the most important research that we do. Most funding for cancer research in the US and around the world actually comes from the federal government, comes from the NIH, it comes from the National Cancer Institute. That's the big pool of money. That money is very hard to get. The funding rate right now is 4%, so only about 4% of grants at the National Cancer Institute get funded. So how do you get that? You need good data, you need seed money. And the money from Alliance Foundation is seed money. What it does is it funds the ideas. It funds the new therapies. It funds the new experiments. It funds the what ifs. It funds the let's try this. It funds the we need to do something different. It fills the gaps. And it allows us to ask new questions and take new directions. And without the seed money and the pilot data and the new funding, we don't get any of those federal dollars. And so we desperately need the Alliance dollars and the money raised from the Empire State Ride to help us move in new directions. The status quo isn't enough. We've made amazing progress. I've been doing this almost 30 years, so almost 3 decades of cancer research, and seen phenomenal progress in breast cancer, lung cancer, the move to personalized medicine, targeted therapies, all of it. But we still have patients that walk in our doors every day that we have to tell them, we don't have anything for you. We still have work to do. And this money goes to that. It goes to the patients that we don't have the options for yet. But without this, there's no new directions. There's no new federal funding. We need this. And this is what funds the future and where we're going from here.
Terry, would you echo that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this year of the Empire State Ride is interesting. We have really, I think, good programming every evening, and we talk about really the why behind what we're doing and how important the people on the ride are to the future of cancer. And this year we had a discussion on the first night about glioblastoma. And I was in awe. Actually, I asked the audience, we were in an auditorium, I asked how many people in this room know someone personally that's had glioblastoma, and I was shocked that nearly 20% of the room raised their hands, and I had no idea that it'd be that significant. But there was a young man that did the ride, and his wife has been alive for 7 years because of the company is Mimavax, a brain cancer vaccine that was developed here at Roswell. And my co-chair, one of my co-chairs, Danielle Casucci, was also there. And she's the vice president of business development for Mimavax, the brain cancer vaccine. She works 24/7 on getting this thing out so it's commercially available. But what was interesting point of this whole discussion was Thomas, his wife, was alive, is alive. She was going to meet us at the finish line. And that brain cancer vaccine was funded 10 years ago. From the day that we presented this, 10 years prior, that brain cancer vaccine, the Empire State Ride helped to get it started. So this glioblastoma vaccine that's soon going to be available for the world wouldn't exist if it weren't for funds from the Empire State Ride.
You're talking about Survaxum, which is, I mean, that was born at Roswell Park, Buffalo, sort of homegrown. You're talking about Dr. Robert Fenstermaker and Mike Krzyzewski, both Dr. Mike Krzyzewski here at Roswell Park. Amazing. That thing is on the cusp of FDA approval. And as you had mentioned, changing lives. And it was, Terry, it was in its infancy. It was in existence at the time when ESR came to fruition. But those funds, and we've seen the seed money, what Joyce had described, makes a huge difference, and it's helped it grow. And Dr. Fenstermaker would describe it that way, grow as quickly into what it's become.
Yeah, I think it was at a stage where funding from events like this were still important for its existence. And so funds from the Empire State Ride helped to grow it to the point where it got more money and off and running.
Alliance funding was important in the identification of the target of that drug, so Survivin. It was important in the development of the initial preclinical vaccine studies. It was important in the development of the clinical vaccine development and safety testing. And it actually was really important in funding the early phase clinical trials. So without Alliance funding and without the fundraising from the Empire State Ride, it would not have accelerated through development nearly as quickly as it did. And that 7 years wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I've had the privilege of covering that story. Dr. Robert Fenstermaker here at Roswell, a former neighbor of ours, actually, in suburban Buffalo, and has since moved, but have interviewed him, and Dr. Mike Krzyzewski as well. This was born in Buffalo with the seed money, and now it's world renowned in terms of there are conferences across the globe and it's just one example of what's possible. For so many of us, this is personal, right? I ride in my father's memory, lung cancer, 2004. My in-laws, Lori's parents, each passed, and there were complications from cancer. I know for each of you, it's very personal as well, and I would ask you to whatever extent you're comfortable to share your stories. Joyce, let's start with you.
Yeah, my mom died 40 years ago. I was 10 from a very rare sarcoma that actually is treated exactly the same way today that it was treated 40 years ago. These rare cancers we don't have new therapies for because we don't study them nearly as much. So those are the kinds of cancers that we study in my lab, and those are the kinds of stories that we're still pursuing right now. These advances are slow coming for some of the more rare tumors, the pediatric tumors, the young adult tumors, the glioblastomas. But 7 years with the glioblastoma, I just don't want to gloss over the fact that life expectancy for glioblastoma 5 years ago was 6 months.
Right.
Like, I don't think we should skip over that part.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty amazing just to think about. So for all of us, these are really personal things. This has been my whole life, and I think Terry's got his own really personal stories too.
Yeah. The crazy thing is I've been working for Roswell as a volunteer to raise funds for 26 years. And when I started, I didn't have a personal cancer story, really. I just felt like when I found out how significant cancer is with 1 in 3 women and 1 in 2 men, I thought if we don't do something, this is a humanity issue. Like, I was thinking, if we hadn't done research and made the developments that we have, I don't know where the human race would go. And we've come a long ways, and it's semi under control, but it depends on if you're the one that gets a diagnosis that there's no solution for. And so that's what got me started, really. I didn't have a personal story, but then one of our riders, we were good friends, and her name is Maria, and she came down with cancer, and I became her caretaker. And she had 430 hours of chemo, a 12-hour surgery, a very rare leiomyosarcoma. And during her treatment, I said, if you beat this thing, maybe we'll have a serious relationship. And we ended up getting married. But, with Maria's extensive chemo that she had, she's reached her lifetime toxicity for her heart and her liver for those types of chemo. So when I look at what's currently being done here at Roswell with immunotherapies, and I think that if we make a breakthrough on her type of sarcoma with a personalized medicine, that'll most likely be the thing that saves her if it happens to come back. And so I just pray that it doesn't come back. But at the same time, knowing that we're working on things here right now that are heading in that direction for personalized medicines for various types of cancer, it gives me hope. And so that's really what fuels me to keep going. And I don't have a choice. I haven't found a way out of the Empire State Ride yet. So I'm going to keep doing it. And it's because Maria's future could be relying on it.
And we're going to make that breakthrough.
Thanks, Joyce.
That's so powerful. To see you, if you look at the website or anything, to see you together on the tandem bike. We need to go into that a little bit. It's such an amazing story, and her survival has been such an inspiration to so many with such a rare form of cancer, and her just grit and determination to get back on the bike. I mean, Lori and I knew her before, both of you, before all of this, and had ridden with her prior. And to see what she is able to do and what she's back to doing after this, and the two of you together doing it, I can't imagine how emotional and what that must be like.
Her grit is, I've never met anybody that's more intense in terms of, being dedicated to staying in shape. And she puts her eye on the Empire State Ride, and she just continues to chunk away at training to get ready for it. Including when she started treatment, the surgeon that we had met with and the oncologist, they would say at the very, very beginning, do you have any questions? And she said, I need to be ready for the Empire State Ride when I'm done. And both of them looked at her and said, that's a pretty high goal. So I remember when she got out of her surgery, and I went to check on her, and they said that in a day or so she'll be up and walking. She was walking 3 miles a day in the hospital the next morning after she got out of surgery, and she never let up. So yeah, she did the Empire State Ride. She rang the bell in May, and she did that Empire State Ride that July, and rode 400 miles of the 560 that year. And then she had an accident. She broke her shoulder, tripped over her dog. And so we did a tandem the next year. And that first week on the tandem tested our conviction for each other.
Yes, it would, as it would anybody.
But then we figured it out. And it was great. So now she's back riding solo. And we ride tandem still sometimes too. But yeah, her tenacity is out of this world.
Joyce, could you describe, I mean, we all know and love Maria. But from a personal and maybe from a professional sort of, medical clinical aspect, what she's been able to do going through her cancer journey. And when you're on a ride like this, I mean, I think Terry and Maria are obviously unique. So is everyone's story. And you're surrounded by inspiration like that when you're a part of this event.
Well, Maria is the only person I know who gets to the bottom of a hill and actually starts to ride faster up the hill, which kind of is a little bit funny, but it's true.
It's true.
And is a perfect metaphor for who she is.
Yeah.
Like, she sees that challenge, and you can kind of just see her do this, like, brace herself and go. And I think that's how she embraced her cancer journey as well. And I think that probably helped get her through it and pushed through it. You're right, we have a lot of survivors on this ride. We have people going through active treatment who have just completed treatment. It's very inspirational to see them with that grit and that determination to go through that. What she's done is really pretty amazing. The tumor that Maria had is very, very rare. It's very aggressive. It was centered in her abdomen, so her surgery was very aggressive. And she lost some pieces of herself as part of that surgery. That her recovery was not minor. It was actually a pretty significant surgery. Her recovery was significant, and not everybody would have come through it as strong as she has and as determined as she has. And I think her will and her faith and her commitment to doing that really has helped her move forward. And I think probably the Empire State Ride helped move her forward and has kept her healthy and with her goals going forward. And so, we talk about giving and going on this Empire State Ride, and we think about it in that direction, that we're riders and we're going in that direction. But I think the Empire State Ride actually also gives back to its riders in a lot of ways. And I think Maria's maybe also an example of that. It I think was a goalpost for her, and
Yes.
probably really helped in her recovery. And I think we see that a lot in our patients, that those goalposts help in recovery. And it's really been very inspirational to see her. Never doubted for a minute, knowing her,
Yeah.
that she had that in her, but it's been pretty amazing to watch.
I met her, I forget the year, Terry, but she was recovering from a bike accident. And I had been through one myself and was doing kind of a public safety, campaign type story, and was inspired by her incredibly. And it was part of WGRZ Channel 2's coverage of the ride for Roswell as well that we got to know, you and Maria. And I would say this, that I've had the privilege of talking to so many doctors, patients, researchers through the years and learning about the progress. And when you see or you interview someone who had a similar diagnosis to your loved one, X number of years later, who's alive and well on a personalized medicine treatment, it's amazing, right? And it gives so much hope and sort of credence to the progress and what you're describing, Joyce. And in recent years, whether it's the cell therapy that's going on here, where Roswell's taking a leadership role nationally and even globally, when you interview some of these doctors and researchers, they've always been very hesitant, from my perspective, to use the word cure. They're starting to use it now. I mean, Dr. Candace Johnson, the president and CEO of Roswell Park, uses that word. I was struck at one point when she actually did. So I think it illustrates the progress, how close breakthroughs are in so many respects, and how important it is to keep supporting events like this and others, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll never forget, I was going to a sarcoma conference in Ireland a couple years ago, and I got in my Uber, and the driver was really chatty and asked a question I get asked all the time: do you ever think we're going to have a cure for cancer? And you're right, we're always really hesitant to use that word, and my answer has changed over 30 years, and it used to be, cancer's not one disease, we're never going to have a cure for cancer, and now my answer is, we've cured that person's cancer. We've cured that person's cancer. And there's a lot of people walking around that are survivors, and they're long-term survivors, and they're not at risk of their cancer coming back anymore. And a lot of that is due to personalized medicine, personalized therapies, and us learning how to treat an individual patient's cancer. And it's amazing to see the progress that we've made, and to be able to sometimes start to use that word in a way that we couldn't before.
And I would ask you about the future of the Empire State Ride. You had said there's pretty much no way out of it for you, but when you hear what Joyce is describing, and when you talk about what's at stake for Maria, within that context, describe for me what your hope and plans are for the future of this event.
I think the momentum that I feel personally, and you can see in what's happening in the cancer world right now. And when I started volunteering to raise funds 26 years ago, we talked about research. And quite frankly, I got tired of saying research, right? I'm like, I'm ready for some results. And then we started talking about clinical trials. I'm like, okay, the research kind of paid off. And we also used to talk about the race to remission. And, the Empire State Ride came along. We said the Empire State Ride to end cancer. And I actually thought, I didn't feel comfortable with that. I don't think we're ever going to be able to end cancer. That's what I thought. And now, with all of the clinical trials that we've actually been raising funds for to help fund those, now with the personalized medicines, the cellular therapy initiative that Roswell's leading on, I feel there's this great sense of momentum, and we can't let off the gas right now. If there was ever a time in history where we need to go full speed ahead, we need to pour funds into getting this going and keeping this going to the point where we have more literal cures. I agree with you. I've heard the word cure in the past 6 months about 3 or 4 times, and I didn't think it was possible. It is possible. And so my future vision for the Empire State Ride is, let's do more, and let's get more money so we can do the cures, get to the cures faster. But it's all about momentum. Don't let up.
Well, neither one of you have, and I don't expect you will at any point. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here on this program. Terry, just a final, as we wrap it up, registration, as this is posted, is open.
Yes.
What if someone is moved, and I'm not sure how they can't be moved by what both of you have described and what you've said, How do they get involved? What steps do they take? And I know you have information on the website at empirestateraide.com.
That's right. Just go to empirestateraide.com and click down that register button. And after you do, a real human will give you a call and start your experience. And I think we've had testimony after testimony from the time you register and you get that phone call, your journey's begun and you won't look back.
You know, Terry, you talk about 560 miles across the state, 7 days. The feeling of arriving at Niagara Falls, I'll never forget it in 2019 after doing the whole thing, what that actually felt like. Describe that experience from a founder's perspective for the ESO.
Well, I reflect back on the finish lines we've had. The first year, my inaugural ride, I still wanted a finish line. But we actually had the media there. And I had a flat. I didn't know if I was going to make it. And they called and said, hey, they're leaving. And I thought, if I don't get to the finish line and get the media to capture it, then this thing isn't going to happen. It has to be a story. So that was the first one. The second one, we had 10 people. And Candace, our CEO, came out, Candace Johnson, and she was standing on a park bench talking to all 10 of us. And it's grown from there into an amazing, we group up together, 2 by 2, same uniforms, and you really feel like it's a hero's welcome.
Joyce, describe that feeling. I mean, it kind of, you've done 6. That, among other things, must keep you coming back.
Yeah, I mean, 6 finish lines. I remember every single one. And there's kind of 2 finish lines. So the riders all group up before the finish line. It's been at DeVoe Woods for the last couple years. And what happens is you're all cheering each other in. So that's kind of our family finish line. And actually, it's really, really special because everybody's gathered there. It's a little rowdy. You're cheering the slower riders coming in. And it's a chance to kind of group with your friends and family there and really celebrate that moment. And then you gear up 2 by 2, you ride in. I've done it in sun. I've done it in rain. 2023, after the worst downpours we'd ever been through. I've done it in heat, I've done it in cold, but you make this turn in Niagara Falls and you can't see the finish line, but you can hear it. And it's like this thundering like crowd. It's so powerful. I'm gonna tear up because, and all of a sudden you can see your friends and family and it goes by in like a blip, but it's just the signs and the cheering and the yelling. You can hear them yelling for you and it's amazing. And you just ride through this crowd and you did it. It's kind of an amazing feeling. And then you get off your bike and go, all right, let's go do it again.
Yeah. Dates for 2026?
July 25th through August 1st.
All right, from New York City, Staten Island to Niagara Falls. Terry Bourgeois, Empire State Ride founder, and Dr. Joyce Ohm, chair of Cancer Genetics and Genomics here at Roswell. Thank you so much to the
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam.
And thank you for being with us here to End Cancer.